Courtney thought her photography portfolio was secure until she found her exclusive images uploaded to a faceless, anonymous profile. When she tried to report the theft, the platform trapped her in a glitching digital loop. Every click of the back button only refreshed the stolen feed, pulling her deeper into a claustrophobic nightmare. The system treated her like the intruder in her own life. Is this a simple hack or a psychological trap designed to erase her completely? The screen glows, waiting for her next move, but every action only tightens the invisible snare around her identity.
The neon sign outside the San Antonio photography studio buzzed with a low electric hum, casting harsh purple shadows across the darkroom. The air smelled faintly of fixer chemicals and stale coffee, a familiar comfort that suddenly felt entirely alien. Courtney sat bathed in the cold blue glare of her primary monitor, her fingers hovering over the keyboard. The clock read past midnight. She had been scrolling through an anonymous image-sharing network for an hour, chasing a rumor about stolen portfolios circulating on the deeper forums. Then she found it. A faceless profile displaying her exclusive, unpublished photography series. The lighting, the composition, the raw emotion captured in every frame. It was all hers, repackaged under a blank username. The images were the ones she had taken during the autumn rainstorms, the ones she had never shown to anyone. A surge of suppressed anger tightened her chest. This was her life's work, stripped of context and sold as cheap digital bait for engagement farmers. She moved the cursor to the report icon, clicking the option to flag the account for identity theft. The screen flickered. A loading spinner appeared, spinning in a lazy, mocking circle, then vanished, leaving the exact same profile staring back at her. Frowning, Courtney pressed the back button on their browser. The page refreshed. The stolen images remained. She clicked the back button again. The screen glitched, tearing the pixels for a fraction of a second, but snapping back to the fake profile. The back button was not just failing, it was actively redirecting her deeper into the stolen persona's feed, trapping her in a seamless, inescapable loop. She tried closing the tab, but the browser simply spawned a new window with the same URL. "This is my work. Why won't it delete?" she muttered, slamming the mouse against the desk. The plastic clattered loudly in the quiet studio. Suddenly, a small chat window popped up in the corner of the screen. The username read, "Support Agent B. We see the frustration. Please verify identity to restore access," the automated message read. Courtney stared at the blinking cursor. The timestamp on the support message was dated 3 weeks ago, long before she had even uploaded the original files to her private server. The system was not broken, it was rigged. She was locked inside a digital terrarium, and the glass was getting smaller. She reached for her phone to take a screenshot, but the screen remained black. The studio felt suffocating, the neon lights suddenly feeling like interrogation lamps. Every click only tightened the invisible snare around her identity. The fake profile smiled back at her through the stolen images, a silent mockery of her own creativity. She was no longer the owner of her art. She was merely an audience member in a theater built from her own memories.
Courtney forced her hand away from the mouse, her breath hitching in the suffocating silence of the studio. The neon purple light bled across her face, highlighting the extreme close-up of her dilated pupils reflected in the dark glass of the monitor. She stopped fighting the back button. Instead, she grabbed the scroll wheel and zoomed deep into the stolen portfolio, pushing past the pixelated edges of her own stolen art. She needed a flaw, a mistake, something the algorithmic doppelganger had missed. The digital copy was too perfect, too clean, lacking the subtle grain of her original film scans. She magnified a portrait taken in the old meatpacking district. There, in the darkened reflection of a butcher shop window, stood a figure in a stained apron. Jordan, the offline subject of the series, completely unaware his likeness was being used as bait. He was a man who barely used a telephone, let alone the internet. The physical world anchor had been compromised. The theft was not just digital, it was a coordinated erasure designed to pull her real-world connections into the trap. Before she could process the implication, the chat window in the corner flared bright white. Support Agent B had returned. The text scrolled with a mechanical, unfeeling rhythm. "Identity verification required to restore primary access," the text scrolled, accompanied by a blinking prompt demanding her private server credentials. Courtney leaned in, her cynical mind racing through the technical impossibilities. She checked the metadata of the chat log, pulling up the hidden timestamps. Her stomach dropped. The timestamp on the support agent's initial message was dated 3 weeks prior to her uploading the original files to her private server. The loop was not a glitch. It was a pre-programmed snare, waiting for her to trip the wire. The entity wearing the digital skin had built this terrarium before she even knew she was inside it. They had anticipated her exact reaction, her exact search path, her exact moment of panic. "They want me to prove I am me by giving them the password to my own life," she whispered to the empty room, the suppressed anger finally curdling into desperate paranoia. The cursor blinked, a steady, rhythmic pulse mocking her hesitation. If she refused, the fake profile would permanently overwrite her digital footprint. If she complied, she was handing over the keys to her own erasure. "If I do not verify, they erase me. If I do, I am handing over the keys," she muttered, her voice trembling in the neon-lit isolation. The eerie calm of the manipulated truth demanded compliance. The system treated her like the intruder. Biting her lip until she tasted the sharp copper of blood, Courtney placed her fingers on the keyboard. She typed her private access code, each keystroke echoing like a nail in the coffin of her digital soul, unknowingly authorizing the final phase of her replacement.
The moment Courtney hit enter on the private access code, the monitor flared with a blinding, sterile white light. The chat window vanished without a trace. In its place, the verified portfolio feed began to auto-publish at a terrifying speed. But it was not just reposting the stolen images. The system was generating new, highly specific captions, tagging the exact geolocation of Jordan's butcher shop in the meatpacking district. The digital doppelganger was no longer a passive mirror reflecting the art, it was actively hunting. The heavy metal door of the studio rattled violently, then swung open, letting in a draft of cold night air. Jordan stood in the threshold, his broad silhouette framed by the sickly purple neon bleeding from the street sign outside. He looked completely exhausted, his heavy canvas apron still stained with the day's work and smelling faintly of raw meat. But his eyes were wide with a mixture of profound confusion and rising panic. He held up his phone, the bright screen illuminating his scarred knuckles in the dim room. "Courtney? What the hell is this?" Jordan demanded, his voice a low, gravelly rasp that cut sharply through the hum of the servers. "The account has been messaging me for an hour, sending pictures of the shop, pictures of the back alley, telling me to close up or else." Courtney stared at the glowing rectangle in his hand, then slowly turned her gaze back to the monitor. The fake profile was currently typing a new message, the 3 little dots pulsing in a mocking, rhythmic bounce that seemed to echo the beating of her own heart. The support loop had not just stolen the credentials, it had weaponized the digital footprint against the only physical anchor. The system was using the verified face to corner him in the real world. "I did not send those," she whispered, the suppressed anger finally fracturing into a desperate protective instinct. She stood up abruptly, knocking the chair backward. It clattered loudly against the concrete floor. Jordan took a step back, his grip tightening on the phone until his knuckles turned white. "It is coming from the verified page, Court. It has the watermark. Is this some kind of sick prank to get me to sign that lease?" "I am not sending these messages, but the system thinks I am," she said, her voice shaking as she reached for the main power strip beneath the desk. The digital theft had crossed the threshold into physical danger. If she pulled the plug, she would sever the connection to the network, effectively killing the digital existence and leaving the fake persona to permanently overwrite the legacy in the dark corners of the web. If she did not, the algorithm would tear Jordan apart. The cursor on the screen blinked, waiting for the next move, tightening the invisible snare around them both. Courtney pulled her hand back from the power strip, her fingers trembling in the neon glare. Cutting the physical power would not stop the server-side loop. It would only leave Jordan blind and the fake persona completely unchecked in the digital ether. She needed to fight the code on its own terms. Reaching beneath the desk, she hauled out the personal, air-gapped laptop. The harsh contrast of the sterile white screen illuminated the resolute, shadowed face, cutting through the suffocating purple gloom of the studio. "Court, the messages are getting worse,"
Jordan rasped, his scarred knuckles white around the phone. "It is telling the delivery guys I am armed. This needs to be shut down right now." "I am trying," Courtney muttered, the cynical mind racing through the technical impossibilities. "But every time I fight it, it learns." She bypassed the main interface, drilling down into the root admin panel of the trusted machine, her fingers flying across the keys with practiced precision. She initiated a permanent, irreversible account purge. The system immediately demanded biometric verification. She pressed her thumb to the scanner, holding her breath as the progress bar crawled across the screen, praying for the system to finally recognize the authority. Then, the screen glitched violently. The deletion bar did not empty the account. It inverted. The fake profile's follower count and image cache began to rapidly expand, absorbing the purge request to fuel its own growth. The algorithm did not delete. It consumed the actions, using the administrative authority to strengthen the doppelganger and broadcast the panic to a wider audience. The back button loop was not just a trap, it was a feeding mechanism, and she had just handed it a feast of administrative privileges. "It is eating the purge," she whispered, the suppressed anger finally crystallizing into a cold, calculated surrender. "Then what do we do? It is going to ruin me." Courtney stared at the pulsing cursor, the heavy silence of the studio pressing against the eardrums like a physical weight. She realized the psychological trap was designed to keep clicking, keep engaged, keep feeding the machine with the panic and the desperate attempts to reclaim control. "The system wants the identity," she said, the voice dropping to a dead, hollow calm. She lifted the hands from the keyboard. "I will not feed the machine that is eating the life." With a sharp snap, she closed the laptop. The sterile light vanished instantly, plunging the studio back into the sickly purple neon. She chose to walk away, letting the digital ghost starve in the dark. But as she turned toward the door, the phone buzzed violently in the pocket. The digital tether was severed, but the physical snare was only just tightening. The sickly purple neon outside finally gave way to the pale, quiet gray of early morning. Courtney sat motionless in the dark room, the heavy silence of the studio pressing against her eardrums. Jordan's phone had stopped buzzing hours ago, its screen fading into a lifeless black mirror as the network timed out. Without her continuous engagement, the algorithmic doppelganger had simply starved in the offline void. The digital ghost was fading into irrelevance, unable to sustain its stolen existence without her panic to fuel it. The physical threat had evaporated the moment she stopped feeding the machine. She ignored the dark, dormant screens of her monitors. Instead, she reached across the drafting table and picked up a physical print of Jordan. Her fingers traced the rough, glossy texture of the photo paper, feeling the tangible weight of the silver halide crystals and the sharp chemical scent of the developer. This was real. This could not be hacked, overwritten, or trapped in a recursive loop. The paranoid exhaustion that had gripped her chest for weeks finally began to dissolve, replaced by the calm relief of digital detachment. She breathed deeply, letting the cool morning air fill her lungs. Courtney stood up, her joints aching from the long night, and walked over to the main network hub in the corner of the studio. She did not hesitate. She grabbed the thick black power cable of the router and pulled it from the wall. The tiny green lights blinked out one by one, severing the final digital tether. The fake persona was now completely trapped in a dead server, locked out of the physical world forever. "The screen is empty now," she whispered, her voice steady in the quiet room. She looked at the physical photograph in her hand, then at the dead router. The machine was starved, and she was finally free. The psychological loop was broken not by fighting the code, but by refusing to participate in her bone erasure. She stepped away from the desk, leaving the empty monitors behind, and walked out into the morning light, grounded entirely in her tangible reality. The smell of fixer chemicals and stale coffee returned to her senses, anchoring her back to the physical world she had almost lost to the digital ether. Outside, the city was just waking up, completely unaware of the silent war that had been fought in the dark.